Congratulations to my friends across the pond on your victory on leaving the EU. Now, that being said, I would like to make a suggestion to my friends across the pond. You have lost a lot of your rights because of the EU. I don't usually get political on this channel, but what I can say is this, you know, is that if you want to restore your rights, you have the opportunity to do it today. At this point, you have an opportunity to basically get back a lot of rights that you lost under the EU tyranny. And keeping that in mind, one fundamental right that you have lost is the right of self-defense, the natural right of every human being to defend their life when it's threatened. You have lost that right. And that is a very sad thing. But you can get that right back. You just have to be smart and you have to be consistent and persistent. Like you got, it took a long time for you to leave the EU, but it took persistence. But now you got what you wanted. You know, if you never give up and you basically keep pushing forward no matter what, regardless of setbacks, regardless of anything, you will win. Trust me, your political enemies never give up, and neither should you. Keeping that in mind, I think it is time for the UK to have a self-defense restoration party. And I think that you could have an organization that could look out for basically the right of self-defense and the right to bear arms. Now, don't get me wrong, you won't be able to basically uh, uh, at this point basically get like firearms rights restored. That will take much long. That's a much more longer goal. But I would concentrate instead of firearms on non-firearm weapons. And keeping that in mind, I've made a list of the reasons and how and why you should lift a lot of you should start a political party that would begin the long journey of lifting a lot of these bans that you have in your country. And here's my advice to the UK. Number one, start a political party that advocates for the natural human right of self-defense. Number two, start by number two, start small. Number two, start small by pushing for the rights of the English subjects to open carry swords, axes, cudgels, similar tools to defend yourselves. Number three, advocate for castle doctrine, which means advocate for castle doctrine, which means if someone breaks into your home, you have a right to employ lethal force. And also advocate for Florida-style stand your ground laws, which means if someone attacks you on the street or any public place, you are allowed to employ lethal force. Number four, make the argument that weapons prohibition has failed, and statistics can provide the facts, the information that you need to basically fight that battle. Number five, advocate for lifting bans on non-firearm weapons. That includes edge weapons, cudgels, non-firearm projectile weapons. Advocate for the end of non-firearm weapons import bans. A good example of this I've learned is slingshot rifles. They're legal in the UK, but they're banned for importation, which means you have to manufacture it yourself It's a backdoor ban. Argue that argue that it's bad for commerce and the British economy, along with individual rights. Number seven. Number seven. Uh, a ban on non-firearm. A lift on a lot of these bans on non-firearm weapons and greater right of self-defense is good for the English economy, and here's why. Partially restoring self-defense rights in the UK would create an economic boom. Number one, it would create a market for non-firearm weapons. By creating an economic demand for quality cutlery, and cudgels, the people can open carry. That means jobs for knife manufacturers, custom knife makers, and martial arts instructors. Thus, fencing and combat schools would pop up all over the UK. It would also be a boom for body armor manufacturers. Achieving these goals isn't easy, but it can be attained. Another thing to remember is that it would also be good for other things. For example, it would dramatically reduce knife crime. It would dramatically reduce knife-related incidents of crime in your country. It would just cut that in half. You give people right to self-defense, those knife crime incidents are going to drop dramatically. And you give people a right to employ lethal force on criminals that attack them, well, the criminals aren't going to attack. Bottom line here is that everybody wins in this situation, except for certain people. A minority isn't going to win. A small minority that has won most of the time. Now, these goals are not easy, okay? And it would probably be, if you started this party, and it's not hard to start a political party in the UK, it would take a very long time to achieve these goals. Keep that in mind. It would be just as hard, but it would be just as much an uphill struggle leaving the EU. But it can be achieved. And it needs to be achieved because it would have so many positive attributes. It would cut crime down in half. It would basically cause an economic boom. Lifting import bans would basically be good for commerce. And that's all I gotta say. I hope that's the best advice I can give for the next step for the UK people. And this is just Americans' advice, just from the outsider's point of view of what needs to be done. Now is not the time to be nihilistic. You achieve something great by persistence. You need to basically you need to stay persistent. You need to basically be persistent on other issues. And then you will have your day. That being said, stay persistent. Bye.